welcome to The Writer's Dream. The Writer's Dream is a show where authors can talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. The Writer's Dream appears on Facebook. Please like us on Facebook, and if you have any questions, you can ask us through Facebook. We are also on YouTube. All of the Writer's Dream shows are there. If you are an author and you'd like to be on The Writer's Dream, please contact me through the Facebook page. Today's guest is Samuel R. Yuen, who has written a wonderful book about finances for kids. It's called The Galactic Defenders, the Financial
Campaign.
Okay, so Sam, thanks for being here, Samuel. And tell us about your book.
My first book, Kids Financial Study, I wrote when I was 10 years old. It was like a book that I had planned to teach to a few kids who were in the classes I was in, because I was inspired to write because of my parents. In my church, they taught a biblical financial class, and I was in the other room with the kids doing
Money
nothing.
in the Bible?
Yeah.
The Bible is full of good stories, but that's an interesting combination of things.
Right.
So what's the Galactic Defenders book like?
The Galactic Defenders is a book about 5 kids who gain superhero powers in the book. And also throughout the book, there was this event coming up called a financial campaign, where the speaker was going to speak about handling your money wisely and stuff. But the speaker's dad gets kidnapped, and then the speech can't go on about the financial campaign. So the superheroes have to rush into action to try to save the speaker's dad so that the speech can go on.
Oh, that's an interesting premise. Now, what would you say the theme of the book is?
The theme of it is probably a lot of action, but like how to spend and like also take good care of an allowance and stuff for young kids.
Okay, so what you're really trying to do is to teach kids the value of being a careful spender.
Yes.
Okay, and because you wrote this book when you were 10 and then 12, you really have a hook into what goes on in kids' minds about money.
Right.
So what do you think your contemporaries, now you're 16 now, what do you think kids really think about money? How do they think of it as just something to spend, or do they think of it as something to invest? What do you think they think about it?
I think they think about it as, I think some of them know that they have to not spend it all at once, but I think like investing is very important, especially in these days. So I try to tell kids how important that is, and how it's also good to save some of it away for like emergency times, and also to even give some to charities and stuff, because there's good things you can do with your money as well.
Right. Originally you said to me about the Bible. Can you tell me about what stories in the Bible link up to finance and how that inspired you?
There are a few, but one I used in, I believe, chapter 7 of my first book, Kids Financial Study, was the story of Ananias and Sapphira, where they were asked to, they decided to give a donation of money to the church by selling their mortgage house. Mm-hmm. But they did not give the full amount of the money, and they were dishonest in giving the full amount. So the moral of that was to be honest with your money, and be honest when you tell people your numbers and stuff, because it's important to take care of your money wisely and also tell the truth about it as well.
Yes, well, there is a saying, honesty is the best policy.
Right.
And it basically points to business, the business world. And I think from my own experiences, and you can tell me about yours, that if you're not honest in business, what happens to you?
Well, you lose customers, first of all, and then you get a bad name. My mom always told me that your name is one of the most important things that you have, and you got to keep it good, because one mistake can change your name and your word for life. So it's always important to keep your name and what you say, like, really down pat and well.
Right, but people don't trust you. You've lost your business. And today, of course, with the internet, those kinds of things where you're dishonest can spread very rapidly.
Yes.
And your name is mud before you know it.
Right.
Why did you focus on the aspect of responsible spending? Why talk about spending money. I mean, you were so young when you did this. I don't know too many 10 or 12-year-olds who really even think about money, perhaps not even beyond getting an allowance. So why did you go to that particular area of, I know you're very faith-based, and why spending? Why not something like smoking or drinking or sexual behavior or something like that? Why spending? There's so many aspects of life that kids really need direction in. So why spending?
Well, I chose to talk about spending because obviously I've seen few examples as a result of my parents' teaching and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see sometimes, even with hanging with friends, that people spend without even thinking twice about it and stuff, just because they have the money. And even later on in life, if you don't learn, I believe, how to spend wisely, you can end up in debt and stuff and not know how to get out of it. So I try to teach kids at a young age, and I'm still learning at the same time too, but also how they can learn about small stuff like that and thinking twice before you spend, before you have to learn the hard way later on in life.
Yeah, I like the idea that your tie has money all over it. I'm sure you kind of, you know, thought about that before
Yes.
you came on the show. Let me see. I have a copy of the chapters in your book, and I'd like to read some of them. Spend wisely, be wise, saving and waiting. It's very hard for young people to wait. Actually, it's very hard for everybody to wait. Can you give us a little bit about a lesson about waiting?
Well, I still don't always get it right, but I try my best to learn from past experiences and teach kids about it. And I've had times where I did not wait for something, like small stuff, like games when I was younger. So I would borrow the money and stuff and get into debt that way when I could have just waited an extra week or two to get what I wanted. So
Okay, so who did you borrow money from? The bank? Did you get a bank loan?
no, I borrowed money from my brother when I was in debt to him, and I think the debt went up like a few days after because I didn't pay him back. So if I would have waited for my allowance, I would have been able to make my purchase without getting into any debt. So
Right,
the point
I
of
had a
wait.
brother who used to borrow from me, but I never got paid back. So I don't know, and really what did I have to hold over his head? Okay, debt. The next chapter is debt. What kinds of debts can kids, besides owing money to their parents and owing money to their siblings, is there any other kind of debt that kids can get into?
Debt, other like besides like financial debt, literally.
Yeah, no, just basically financial debt. Do you think that kids borrow money from their friends?
Yeah, I think they do that with throughout the friends shopping, and they want to buy something that they obviously can't afford at that moment, which is why I encourage waiting and stuff. But I think the important thing is, like to say, if you don't have the money for something, you have to wait and you can't purchase it at that time. So it's important to not even have that as an option, in my opinion.
So if you had to come up with a plan, if I came to you, let's say I was a 14-year-old girl, and I came to you and said, I've read your book and it's very interesting, and can you give me like the first thing I need to do to get financially stable in my 15-year-old life? I get an allowance of $25 a week, and from that $25 a week, I have to buy my lunch. I have to pay for any little things I need to buy, obviously not clothing, unless it's something special. My mom buys my clothes and, of course, puts a roof over my head and feeds me. And I go to public school, so I don't really have a lot to pay for. What kind of a plan could you give me for these $25? It costs me $2.50 every day for lunch. So that's, $12.50 a week?
Right.
Yeah, so what? That's half my allowance. What should I do with the other half?
Well, obviously, it can be a big amount or a small amount, but something I do before I even think about fun stuff I want to spend my money on is put aside something for saving just in case. Like one day your friends call you, I guess, on the spot and say you want to do something, and maybe want to do something with them, and you didn't plan it, so maybe you don't have money in your spending at the moment, but you can just do it then. But I always recommend taking care of your needs first and what things you will need to get through each day, rather than things which could be just an additional fun thing for a few minutes of your day, because needs are always more important.
Do you suggest that, I'm the 15-year-old girl now, do you suggest that I start a bank account in a bank?
Yes, when I was very young, I think about 9 or 10, I started putting it like $1 in a week into the bank for savings and to get interest and stuff. It's still in there right now, and I do that sometimes to always have like a little emergency funding. And sometimes my family likes to do for Christmas, we take like a small amount of it each year and buy each other presents and stuff with it. So we like to use it for giving to others, and also for in the future if we never need like emergency cash quick.
Right, there used to be, banks used to have this thing called a Christmas club, and you put a certain amount in every week, and you'd use it for your Christmas presents. What about, I want to go to college, and I know my parents can't really afford to send me to pay for the whole thing, but I do know that there's a special bank account that I can open, and it gets a special amount of interest. Do you suggest that I put the money there rather than a savings account?
Well, yes, if you plan to go to a college, then I recommend start saving for that. If you know that it might be a little pricey for you in the future, I recommend starting slow, because starting early, like even with buying your first car, I've heard stories from my parents, people who started really young, even younger than my age of 16 right now, and they're able to buy their own cars with just money they've been saving and not have to worry about taking any loan.
Yeah, you're recommending that I put some money away from my car.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Linda Frank, okay, and I'm going to tell you a funny story about that. When I taught high school for a long time, and of course the car culture was a big part of it. And so you would hear all about the kids taking driver's ed. And I had a study hall, so I listened to the kids' conversations, and they would talk about, okay, taking driver's ed. I took the first driving test, I failed it. I took the second driving test, I failed it. The third one, got my license. Then you would hear about the first time Mommy gave me the car to drive to school.
Right.
Okay, then you would hear about the first flat tire. Then you would hear about the first fender bender, okay? And then they would talk about when I, can buy my own car, and they would talk about what kinds of cars they would buy. So then they would ask me, they'd say, Miss Frank, what kind of a car is your favorite car? What would you buy? And I would say, oh, I would like the Mercedes-Benz Sports Coupe. And they said, well, why don't you buy one? And I would say to them, because I can't fit all my junk in it. And they would look at me, and I said, because I can afford the house or the car, but not both. So I'd have to put all my junk in the car because I couldn't afford the house. I have to live in the car. And it took them a while to understand that. But that's a very important kind of lesson in budgeting. And but what is the very last thing you have here is the true believing test. What does that mean?
Well, it's kind of like a follow-up to chapters 8 and 9, where I talked about like times in my stories when I didn't always have money for something, and just by waiting it out, not going into debt, having proper faith and stuff, also how money sometimes would come and stuff at the right moments when I needed it, because I did the right thing and did not rush to do any of it or to get money. So I just titled that chapter to explain my last 2 chapters, and to also give them like a big review on everything they've learned in the book so far.
This is sort of like the lilies of the field lesson from the Bible, right? Don't worry about it. Look at the lilies of the field.
Yes.
God provides everything that you need, so at the right time you'll get the money that you need. So then what is the true believing test? Is that in your life you will notice that things will come to you when you need them?
Yes, I believe in every person's life, eventually something unexpected will hit them numerous times, maybe in finances or even other areas. But if you do the right thing, don't go into debt, and obviously trust God, then you will be rewarded for it.
My mother used to say, God takes care of those who take care of themselves. Now, what do you think about working? What do you think about, like, when you were 10 years old, did you earn money working? And I don't mean like in Walmart or something like that. Did you do little chores and stuff like that to earn money?
Yeah, there's stuff like washing the dishes, mowing the lawn, after dinner or whatever, and most of my chores came in like the summer times because that was when I was most off. I
Right.
also made a little bit more in that time, but yes, I think chores taught me how to be responsible, and I still forget to do them now sometimes, but they were a good foundation of learning that you got to work to receive money and stuff. It doesn't just come freely.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I absolutely think that there's a really great lesson in learning the value of money. For instance, lots of times you'll see kids will say, "I want," let's say, a tablet, okay, and a tablet is a pretty costly piece of equipment, and mommy and daddy will give them the tablet for their birthday or for some occasion, and what I think is a great lesson is to see how many hours you have to work to make the money to buy the tablet.
Right.
And I think that really teaches the lesson of the value of money. And so I see a lot of things in your book. I see, lessons about character, and, being honest, and,
Right.
and actually facing yourself. I think when you make a budget, you're facing yourself as to what are my needs, what are my wants. And I think one of the lessons you can get out of this is to see how materialistic you are.
Right.
And then the bottom line is that honesty and trust. And I think they're all great. I see in one of the articles that I read about you, because there was a beautiful piece about you, it's a press release from Selden, and that you're interested in turning this into a script.
Like a movie script one day, yes.
So how do you see that? Who's going to be your star?
I don't know. Probably I would try to find some people who could portray the character nice and stuff, but I think I would make some of the movies, I hope in the future, about the main characters one at a time. Each one of the 5 siblings individually, but like a movie about each of them. I hope I can do that one day, as well as even a video game perhaps to follow it up.
Yeah, I think this lends itself to a really good video app,
Right.
especially for like younger kids. A money game type of thing. And I think that's something that you could look into, and find somebody in the computer department at Stony Brook or who would be interested in that kind of thing. Tell me about the characters. You say there are 5 kids in the book, and you want to do something about them individually. Can you tell me about them?
Yes, well, there's 5 characters. There's 3 boys, 2 girls. There's Samuel, Alex, Zach, Christine, and Jessica. Jessica is the leader of the Galactic Defenders, and throughout
You
the
made
series...
a woman, a girl, the main character? That's
Yeah,
exciting. I like
yes.
that.
We try to make the characters all have their own, like, ups and downs about them. One of them is clumsy, one of them is sometimes overconfident. Sometimes we try to make them all really funny so that kids can find them humorous and enjoyable.
Sure.
And we try to develop their character throughout the book. And obviously, we try to make them really exciting, just like any other superhero story you would see, so that the kids can fall in love with the characters, and they will run back to it over and over again to keep reading the book, and eventually